Kia ora everyone, I'm Nick, founder of Kenzie's Gift. I'd like to welcome you to the Grief Podcast, brought to you by Kenzie's Gift. We're a New Zealand charity that provides mental health support for young Kiwis who've experienced the death of a parent or sibling. We don't avoid talking about death here. It's hard, it's real, and it changes everything. This podcast is a place for honest conversations about what it's like when someone in your life dies, how grief shows up, and what comes next. I'd like to say a huge thank you to SkyCity Auckland Community Trust for funding this podcast and making these conversations possible.
I'm Sasha, your host. When I was 17, my mum died of breast cancer. It turned my life upside down. I got support from Kenzie's Gift, and now I'm sitting down with other matatahi who, like me, have had a loved one die. Grief is different for everyone. Some days it hits you hard. Other days you feel nothing. There's no right or wrong way to deal with it. But one thing we do know, talking about grief makes it feel less lonely. In this podcast, we talk about death, grief, love, memories, and everything in between. If something in this episode does feel like too much, you don't have to push through. Pause, take a break, and come back when you're ready. In this episode, I'm talking to Lucy, whose dad died when she was 11. She's now 20 with a keen love for animals. We talk about how memories can transform over time from painful to happy ones. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Grief Podcast. I'm really excited to be joined here by Lucy. I'd love, Lucy, if you could start by sharing with us who your loved one was and what they meant to you.
Yeah. So it was my dad. He died when I just turned 11. He was sick for 4 years, and obviously being my dad, I was very close with him. I was definitely very much a daddy's girl, and I hadn't done anything wrong yet at the time of being 11. So I seem to think I was like his perfect little girl at the time. I hadn't turned into a teenager yet at puberty.
Those ages.
Yep. So that's pretty much the overview of it. Yeah.
And what did your dad mean to you? You mentioned you guys were really close. What did that feel like and look like for you? Yeah,
so he was a real, I think, safety, like, for me. He worked for our family, like he was our main income, so he was always seemed like that, like, provider for me. And we would often go to Maratien or Bunnings, and that was his, like, every weekend had to go. And when, like, he had to pick which, my brother and I had to take one of us with him, and he'd always pick me to go, probably because I was easier than my brother. But I always like, I'm the one, the cool one. Honestly, words can't even, like, describe what he was to me. And it's quite sad being, like, so young when it happened, because I still have the memories, but then still haven't quite established what he was to me at the time.
Of course.
But yeah, he was, just everything to me. Like Superman.
That's all right. What were some of your favourite, maybe, like, traits about him?
Well, to be honest, it's actually quite hard to remember really detailed things about him, which I actually find quite hard, because it's like he was such a big part of my life. It's like, I can't actually pinpoint that many things about him. Like, I think that, like, I could probably say things that he was, but they probably wouldn't be very accurate. Like, to me, he was quite scary to me. I loved it though. He was like, mostly just my safety was like my main thing, like someone I could lean on always. Made me happy, just made me feel so special, and just like I was the only little girl in the world.
Oh, I'm really glad that you were able to have that for 11 years.
Yes.
And he sounds like, protector, provider, and he sounds amazing. Like super dad, like you said.
He really was. It seemed like just was that to me.
Yeah. And what would you say would be like a favourite memory that you have with him? Is there anything that sort of stands out as your favourite memory with him?
My favourite probably would be, we went on a trip down south and we camped in the car and went down water slides. I remember the water slides were amazing. I love the water slides. And you know those like massive blow up things at campsites, and you know those like massive things.
Oh, they're like pillow things.
Yeah, they're like the pillows. Yeah, I remember that. That was so cool. And just being like alone with him, that was just pretty amazing. Yeah.
Good to have that special one-on-one time to look back on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel so grateful to have been able to have those times. Even just like the small things of, as I said, like going to maternal bungings, like just like those small things, like the routine, like even going, if I go to those stores now, like all the emotions come back, because it's like that was where I like grew up with him. Yeah, I just loved it. Also, whenever he came home from work, I remember always looking out. My bedroom looked out onto our driveway, so I'd always like watch his car come home, and I remember getting that like excitement when he'd come home. I was always so happy to see him.
Excited to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you went to like the Maraten, like Bunnings places, and now when you do that, does it bring up some like emotions for you? And how does that feel?
At first, I found myself actually avoiding going there if I could, because I didn't quite understand like, what I was feeling. It was just not very pleasant. So when I went, I've always felt quite emotional, and I just wanted to get out. And I've kind of found now that I actually quite like going. It's like been a shift that it actually is an enjoyable memory. Yeah, it's just interesting how your mind shifts. Yeah.
Absolutely. And how have you found that process, I guess, in that shift from previously those experiences feeling maybe quite emotional, maybe perhaps even negative, I can imagine, or and to now it may be feeling more like a positive, like happy memory.
Yeah.
What do you think's changed over time for that to happen?
I think that when I was younger, I really didn't process properly what had happened. I was very much in, I guess, denial about it. Probably because I was just so young. Like
Understandable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember actually thinking quite a lot, like going, oh, what's the time? Like checking it to see what time, like see how far I was away from coming home. And it'd been years. Like it's so weird to have those feelings. And I guess it's just going through that, like learning it and actually really sitting in the emotions and then learning to come out of them. I think that when it was the negative emotions, it was more just me avoiding it.
Yeah.
I think I've also found it quite hard that I now find it positive. Like it feels wrong, like to feel those like positive emotions around it. Like I feel like I shouldn't be feeling those. Like I should only feel negative, and I almost feel like a level of guilt for it. But I guess that's just what it is, right? It almost feels like I'm moving on, but really I'm just moving forward. Like I can't hang on to it forever. So, yeah.
That's really relatable what you just said. I think in my own grief experience as well, there's been times where there were early on glimpses of happiness, but then I would feel guilty too. I was like, oh, why am I feeling any type of happiness? I feel like I would have been betraying mum and the grief of mum because, well, she died. I should be sad. I should be all these things that I thought grief would be. Is that sort of how you feel as well?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a level of guilt in a sense. Like I was moving on from what he was to me and almost like forgetting about who he was. And just, I think I felt when I was sad or angry or emotional about it, like with negative emotions, I kind of felt like I was like owning who he was by feeling that. But I think now I've kind of moving forward realized that actually that wouldn't have been what he wanted me to do. He would have wanted me to be positive about it and try and think of all the positive memories rather than thinking of it negatively. So, yeah,
absolutely. And I really like what you said before, that it's not moving on, it's moving forward. How did you come to that, I guess, like perspective?
Really through my psychology sessions. Honestly, to be honest, I have not come to that on my own. It's like I felt a lot of guilt in it, and I think having someone tell me actually you're allowed to move forward, you're not moving on, like you're actually allowed to feel like that, it was very validating. I don't have that many people in my life who have gone through that kind of stuff, and I don't like opening up to people about it, especially my family, as I don't want to be that like burden kind of person. So it was really nice going to actually a psychologist saying, you know what, you're allowed to feel like that, and having that validation was so nice. Yeah.
I bet that would be sort of being in that space to be held, to be able to feel whatever you need to feel. And I can relate as well, like no feelings are wrong feelings.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just feel different and maybe not right, but hey, whatever we feel is what we feel. And it's really great that you had that space to be able to talk through those and be validated, because there's no right or wrong in grief, is there? There's just sort of what you feel, and it's so individual, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's
definitely no textbook for it. It'd be nice if there was.
Right, tell me how to grieve.
Exactly. It's so weird, like how everyone is so different, and someone can say something and then it's just totally, you don't relate to it, or maybe you do relate, and it's just, I would love just there to be an answer, but unfortunately it's not that straightforward.
I guess we go through our own experiences and the different parts that life itself brings, and then there's that extra layer for us of the grief with life, hey, and navigating those two things together. And in that navigation of grief for you, what have you found to be most maybe helpful? So you've mentioned talk therapy and psychologists. Has there been anything else as well that's played a role in that for you?
I think I'm learning how to do it still. It's crazy, like it's been 10 years, which seems so long, but I'm still learning how to do it. I think first of all, I would always avoid it. Like that was my instinct. If I had any negative emotions, I'd be avoiding, like straight away. That's what I do. Now actually sitting in it and actually allowing myself to feel those emotions has been like the best thing, really. And just sitting there and saying, actually, you're allowed to feel that way. And it's just so kind of being kind to yourself. Like, I was never very kind. And it's just that kind of thing. I love animals so much. I have 2 horses. So
what are their names?
Wisp and Harley are their names. Yeah. And honestly, just spending time with them, having a massive cry in the paddock, and they all just come and say hello and go, what are you doing? You know, and just being with someone that you don't feel like a burden, you have no expectation of being anybody other than yourself, and being with animals is just such a nice way to do that. Also doing things that I think that he'd like to do. I think he was quite adventurous from what I know, like to do stuff. So I like to go out with my partner, and we go out quite a bit and go and travel the country, kind of do that kind of stuff, and just being there trying to actually enjoy life.
It's almost like honouring what he maybe did or would do and did with you, that travelling side as well, like you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's hard, but it's
of course
good. Yeah.
And it never necessarily gets easier. We perhaps just find different ways to sort of move forward, hey, without moving on, just that moving forward way.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How did their death change things for you? Perhaps maybe either like right away or over time?
I mean, right away, everything changed. Like family dynamic, it was quite different. It's quite hard, I think, to pinpoint what the changes were, because I guess I was at an age where there were so many changes happening in my life already, like going into high school and puberty and all that fun stuff. So it was hard to pinpoint what would have changed anyway. But yeah, obviously my family dynamic, how I thought about things, I felt like I had to grow up really quick, and from having such a joyful childhood to all of a sudden, like just like that, it was quite a shock. But as I say, I think I was in quite a bit of denial and hadn't processed really what had happened until later on in my life.
Especially being 11. I mean, I was 17 and didn't even start processing for many years. So even being 11, that's so young to know, I guess, or to understand maybe what happened and what to feel and how to feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I think seeing all my friends with both their parents and all that kind of thing, I always found it quite hard. And I think I got a bit angry and frustrated in the sense of like, this isn't fair. Like, it's just not fair. I found that a little bit all-consuming at times, like really sitting in that negative space of saying it's not fair. But I mean, life's not fair. It's just how it goes, right?
So, and is there anything that's maybe helped you in those moments to come back to that, I guess, perspective that you've formed now? Does anything help you in those sort of moments when you're feeling those sort of quite big emotions?
Yeah. I think letting myself feel them. I quite like to give myself a timer. I'll say I give myself like 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how upset I am at the time.
Yeah.
And I'll let myself sit in those emotions, and I'll go, okay, you can have this length of time to sit in those emotions. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel. But after that timer goes, you're going to get up and you're going to do something that's positive for you. Like even just taking a shower, doing my hair, going for a walk, like seeing my horses, doing something that mentally is quite challenging to overcome. But I think setting like the timer, saying, okay, you're allowed to have this amount of time to sit with it, but you're not going to let it ruin your day. Like you've got to live, and I found that quite helpful, I think, in those times. Yeah. Obviously I didn't win every time. Like I would often go, you know what, I'm just staying in bed and I'm gonna rot.
Alarm, stop.
Yeah,
phone,
stop it.
throw.
I don't care. Or I just distract myself and scroll nonstop on Instagram. I'm terrible. Like I'm always scrolling. I guess it's kind of working out whether you should distract yourself or let yourself sit in it, kind of working out where you're at in your headspace. I mean, often you don't make the right decision, right? I really enjoyed spending time with people as well. Not that I don't like being a burden to people. I don't want anyone to see me upset, which I'm still learning that that's actually okay. But also going and seeing people that I allow myself to be vulnerable with is really nice, and just having a cuddle. I just love a good cuddle. Yeah.
Sounds like finding that good balance of holding space for yourself to be and have those emotions, and then reaching out for that help when you sort of need someone else there, and that's okay. And it's good to find that balance, of what you need in those moments.
Yes. Yeah. It's taken me a long time to find that balance, that's for sure. I think it's never straightforward at all.
Still finding the balance.
Yeah, same.
I guess it never ends. We just keep finding perhaps different ways and different strategies, and your grief has evolved over 10 years already and mine 9. But I'm still learning things every year, as I'm sure you are, and maybe even finding new or different ways to connect with your dad, would you say? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, it's been 10 years, and like if I think of birthdays or the date of his death or anything, I've always been so avoidant of the days. Like I don't want to bring it up with my family. I'm like, oh, maybe they've forgotten about it, and then I don't want to bring it up because then it will make them sad or that kind of thing. And actually, I think my mentality has changed in thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I'm actually going to think about it and like honor him today, because it's what he deserved. Well,
that's beautiful. What does honouring him look like for you?
I haven't done it yet.
It's okay.
I guess working hard, like in myself, I've always wanted to make him happy. I always want to make him proud of me, and I know he would be proud. Honestly, I don't know yet. I really don't know. I'm still trying to work it out. His anniversary is in October. Also his birthday, so it's just been. And this year I went, oh, you know what? Maybe next year I'm going to actually do something for it, which is the first time I've ever come to at least thinking about doing it. So slowly I'm getting there. But I think in day to day, it's just trying to make myself a better person, be successful in what I do, be happy, and I think that would be the number one thing, and honouring him and making him proud, really.
Absolutely. That's really beautiful. Do you think that there's something special about them that you see in yourself?
My stubbornness.
Love it.
From what I've heard, he was quite stubborn and didn't let people roll over him. I think I do a little bit too much sometimes. I mean, unfortunately, I don't remember those details. So I don't know exactly what it is. I think I look like him, so that's quite nice. But I think it's quite sad in the sense I find it hard that I don't remember actually.
That would feel really challenging and so normal to feel that way. Has there been anything that in your experience has helped you around that idea, or is it sort of like acceptance? Or
In the last few years, I found it quite hard. You know, when you can close your eyes and you can like kind of imagine what someone looks like.
Of course, yeah.
I can't do that anymore, and it's quite sad. Like I used to be able to do that, and as time's gone on, I'm not able to do it. And like you know, you can kind of hear what someone's voice is, and I can't hear it anymore. So yeah, over time, that has been quite hard. I think I'm actually finding it harder as time is going on. I haven't quite worked out how to cope with it yet. He used to film a lot of home videos.
Oh, really?
Like, a lot. So I'll go and sometimes look at those, but they seem to make me more sad. So I haven't quite worked out yet how to make myself feel better in those situations. I'm kind of just sitting in it at the moment and just trying to work out what's the way to feel better.
And sometimes we don't have the answers, hey, and sometimes we're, you know, it takes time, and we keep growing up, and different things will come to us sort of in different moments of how to, I guess, cope with those different challenges. And it's really beautiful that maybe he did film all those home videos, so when you're ready and when it feels right to go back to them, and maybe that's when it will hopefully maybe be less sadness. But two things can be true at the same time. Hey, we can feel sadness and grieve for the death of them, and grieve for 11-year-old you, and you can grieve for now you, and grieve for them, and just navigating all of that takes time. Hey, and we're all different little journeys to get there, roller coasters, ups and downs all along the way. And actually my mum also used to always just be filming stuff. Did your dad just do that too? Like, there's so many, like that little video camera that
I know the one you mean.
Like, not phones, like there were not iPhones.
No. Get the camera out.
We spoke a bit about before making him proud, and I feel like that sounds like something really important to you, that you want to make him feel proud. And what do you think they'd be proud of in the person that you've become today?
Probably my kindness, I'd say, and my passion for things. Once I get into something, I'm very into it. When I ride, because I do show jumping and eventing with my horse, and I think he was quite competitive as well. My mum always says he would have loved that. So when I'm competing or training and all that, I think he would be really proud of how hard I work to get to where I want to be. He didn't start off life overly successful or anything, but he really worked his way up in the world, and I think he'd be proud of me doing the same also with my career at the moment, and just just trying as much as I can, being as hardworking as I can and kind. And I think he'd also be proud of me not letting people that I don't actually see adding value to me. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll limit my time with you a little bit more. I think those kind of things, I think he'd probably be proud of that. I've heard he could be a little bit grumpy with people. Like, yeah, that's my girl. Doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he loved you very, very much, and I have no doubt he would be so proud of who you are today and where we have come from, and the experience that you have had to go through, the hardships and hard times that you've had to endure to be the person you are today, hey, and to get there. By the sounds of it, you really do, I guess, embody that side of him, the really hardworking side, and how you see value in how he provided that safety, protection for you. Sounds like you're doing that for yourself, and it's something you really value.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, work as hard as I can. Some days it's harder than others. Yeah,
that's really great. And if you could have one more day with your dad, what is it you think you would like to even do with him, or even say? What would be that standout for you?
Oh my goodness, I would just want to cuddle, honestly. Oh, it made me cry. Yeah, I just want to cuddle. That would be all I'd want. I don't even think I would need to say anything, do anything. I just want to be held like that. Just that feeling of safety and unconditional love, and just feel that. All I would ever want. And it's so hard, I think, because I'm hardworking and I like to achieve certain goals. I'll go, I'm going to do that and I want to achieve it. Or if I want something, I'm going to do it and try to get to that. And it's so hard to think that that's something I really would want. I would honestly love to just give him a cuddle. And you can't. And that's like such a hard thing to actually overcome, is that actually you can't. And it's, quite intense to realize, oh, actually, I can't do that. You know, if you miss someone, you can go, oh, I'm going to organise to see them or that kind of thing. But you actually, there's nothing you can do. And it's quite, I guess, sort of defeating in that way. Like there's actually nothing you can do, and it's out of your control. And that's just something you kind of have to let go of, which is a bit, I find, quite challenging. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I imagine it is. And it's like that just that option has been taken away. Hey, there's no amount of anything that we could do to get that hug with our special person.
Yeah.
You mentioned sort of having to, I guess, let go of that, and that's such a hard thing to do, right? Like, how do we get there? How do you get there? What, I guess, thoughts do you have around how to sort of let go of something like that? Or is that something you would like to still hold on to, you know, that thought? Tell me your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I'm trying to accept it, but sometimes I get very angry about it. I get frustrated. I'm like, what the? This is not cool. Just a level of frustration I get. I haven't really come to terms with it. I think that eventually I'll accept it. I don't know how to get to that point yet, but I do get into that negative space of, this isn't fair. I see people with their parents and their dads, and they're all, and I just, oh, this is not fair. And I haven't quite worked out how to do that yet, but I'm learning to accept it is the thing I'm trying to do, at least at the moment.
I remember when we actually met a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and we were chatting, and the idea of things in the future, like dates coming up, for example. We spoke about sort of getting married one day, you know, that type of thing, and how do we go about that day? Because again, two things will be true that day. One of the maybe best days of our life, but then also that special person's not there. And I think probably for people listening, and it's hard to know how to support someone perhaps through that day, or even if you've lost your person, it's just scary, and it's the unknown, and it's so normal to feel like that. Hey,
it's definitely a sad thing to think about, you know. For a lot of people, it is just the happiest day of their life, and they don't have that other emotion that they have to feel in that situation. So I think honouring them in some way is a beautiful thing to do. I know we spoke about having a chair for them in like the front row there, allocated for them. I've seen like a few people let off butterflies or birds or that kind of thing in honour of them. But it is, I think, quite a hard thing to think about when you're going through those milestones, that for most people they don't have that negative emotion around it, and it's a bit upsetting that we now have that emotion. I kind of like to think of grief as love with no place to go, you know, the unexpressed love that you weren't able to express to them. So I think trying to think about it in that way of actually how much love you have in you, and that's why you feel that way, and that the love that you have actually is so important, and that makes you who you are because you love them so much. And even though they're not there, they're still in your heart because you love them, you know. It's that kind of feeling, I think.
How you just put that is so beautiful.
I think we always think of grief as being like quite a negative thing, but the only reason you grieve for them is because you love them so much, and you can't give them that love, so at least you can keep it in you, and you can give it to all these other people. And I almost like to think I've become quite empathetic, and I think that a lot of people have as well, and you feel very deeply for everybody. A lot. And you cry for other people. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm meant to be supporting you right now, but I'm crying. It's quite beautiful. You're almost giving the love that you would have given to them to other people, and you're sharing, like, you've got even more love to give because there's this love in you. It's quite nice to try to think of it in a more positive way. But also it can be awful.
Well, yes, we can feel that way, but it sounds like, you know, we've both been able to also have that perspective of, okay, well, this has happened and I've got all this love here, and how can I give it to others? How can I give it to myself? I really love that perspective, because we can't change what's happened, and we're allowed to feel however it is that we need to feel, right? I think that's been a really big word that's come up just in conversations, is honouring, and how can we honour them and ourselves, as well.
It's such a big thought to think of, honouring them without making it make you upset about it, trying to make it a positive way. And I think that, everyone will have a different way of doing that. Like some things I hear of ways that people honour their loved ones, I think is absolutely beautiful, but I could never ever do it, and it would make me so emotional and actually probably make me feel worse. But it's so beautiful that everyone has different ways of honouring their loved ones. I think it's so special.
Grief is so individual, isn't it? We might grieve differently and evolves. We've even spoken about how grief's evolved for you, like over time, and different ways of connecting, perhaps like with your dad has evolved, and how even the Mighty Tin and Bunnings, that brought up some big emotions at the beginning, but now it's more of that honouring, like, connection way. And yeah, that's really beautiful. For those listening, what would you want others going through grief, or say if it's someone who's supporting someone going through grief as well, what would you want them to know?
I think that the big thing, if you're going through grief yourself, is allowing yourself to feel that way. I think that's like one of the biggest things to me, is you can't beat yourself up. You're allowed to feel that way. My gosh, you've gone through so much. Like, you're allowed, and be kind to yourself, because the person that unfortunately is not with you anymore would want you to be kind. They'd want you to love yourself and give yourself the love that they wish that they could give you, and validate yourself. And then also for people who are supporting someone who's gone through it, validate them, allow them to feel that way, give them a hug, say, you know what, this is awful, but you're allowed to feel this way, it's okay, and everything will be okay, is a really important thing to just allow yourself, because I used to find it so hard to let myself be vulnerable, and it's scary being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
You can get hurt being vulnerable, someone can take advantage of you, and all those ideas jump up, when really it's just so important just to let yourself be vulnerable. You're so allowed, and nobody will ever take advantage of you for that. You've been through so much. I think that's like the biggest thing for me. I've only just learned actually you're allowed to feel that way, and it's been 10 years, and since I've learned that, it's been emotional, and because I've actually am allowing myself to feel that, but also very, very empowering in that way. I just feel very strong and in charge, and it's really nice to not feel all consumed by something you can't control,
Oh, there's some beautiful words, and I hope those listening, you felt that. I felt that deep in my heart. And if 11-year-old Lucy could have heard the words you just said then, how special would that have been? And that's why we're having this conversation, so that 17-year-old Sasha, 11-year-old Lucy can learn that feel the things. It's okay to feel the things, and wherever you're at with feeling the things is okay too. And also to not compare, your grief with others and maybe where they're at, where you're at, because it's so individual. And I really love what you said. So that's some really great advice. Thank you.
One other thing is that when you allow yourself to feel that way, there's always going to be negative emotions around grief, and even if you try not to feel them in the first place, you're going to feel them in the end. So it's so much better. You don't need to beat yourself up for it. Just let yourself feel them, and then you can move forward. Well, try it, and think about it positively, rather than keeping that in so much and then having a big blow up later on, Yeah. I wish I knew that when I was younger.
Yeah, me too. We're still learning.
Yes,
we're here now, right?
It's crazy how much you learn.
I know. And we'll never stop. We'll still keep learning, evolving, growing, finding new ways to honour. Hey, all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to say thank you so, so much for your time and for coming on the podcast. It's been really, really great to connect with you, to learn about your experience with grief and learn about your dad as well. It's been really amazing.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be here.
Grief is tough, and you don't have to do it alone. If this episode brought anything up for you, talk to someone, a friend, whānau, or someone you trust. If you're in New Zealand and want professional support, Kenzie's Gift is here. We offer one-on-one therapy for under 24s, plus support kits and resources at kensiesgift.com.
And if you're outside New Zealand, check in with your GP, your school counsellor, or a local support service. And if you need urgent help, please contact emergency services.
Thanks for listening. Take care, and we'll catch you next time. Ka kite anō.